The topic of this session was chosen or identified to address two different issues, but they are so interlinked: women's problems in the region and women as refugees. And what we can do to help this, I consider the most vulnerable criteria exists in the Middle Eastern countries now, which is the women as refugees or a woman to be a refugee from different countries. I will be also speaking from a practical experience, not that much from the academic narrative, because I think will add to your knowledge a little bit. You have all the resources and the books and reports available online, but let me please share with you some of the daily interactions we do as civil society organizations and different stakeholders, including different governments and international aid communities in addressing this important issue. As we all know, women in the whole world are suffering from lots of challenges, hindering their level of participation economically and politically, and being able to fulfill their potentials in different parts of the world. Well, women in the Middle Eastern countries, they have double of these challenges because of lots of environmental aspects related to the tribal or family laws that force or enforce upon them. Not to mention the ongoing crises that we have to suffer from and to counter daily since the last three recent decades. I have to say, women as refugees, they have their own as well problems and suffering compared to the rest of the Middle Eastern women exist in different countries in the Middle East region. So I will be speaking about the whole Middle East, but little by little I will be focusing more in Jordan as a unique place for hosting 48 different nationalities of refugees, not only the Syrian refugees. So women and the Syrian women in particular witnessed so many challenges recently in Jordan and in different hosting countries like Lebanon and Turkey. They are more subject to discrimination, alienation, and they are witnessing lots of domestic violence, early marriage, and most of these phenomena that they are well known to you. The interesting aspect about being a woman and a refugee suffering from all of these things, all of these bad, sorry, I'm a little bit confused with the translation. I hope the translators are following up with me, yeah? I'm speaking slowly enough, yeah? Okay. Slowly? Okay. So women in the camps particularly, they are having a different criteria of problems. So I would stop here and I will be talking about our experience as aid workers, as practitioners, as people trying to address all of these issues in different settings. 80% of the refugees are existing outside of the camps. Only 20% are exist in the refugees camps, Zatari and Azraq as we call them. Unfortunately, Jordan has 13 different camps for Palestinian refugees as well up to this date. So in total, we have 16 different camps. So when we are talking about refugees, women in camps, we are addressing women living in 16 different camps, belonging to different nationalities, different backgrounds. The Palestinian women, they have their own, let's say, situation because they've been living in Jordan for the last 70 years, since 1948 or since 1967. However, Iraqi women or Somalis or Syrian women, they are recently came to Jordan and they have different, let's say, laws and regulations they have to interact with. Syrian women in particular consist 50% of the total number of the population of the Syrian refugees in general. 60% of them are between the age of 15 and 25. 40% of them are school-aged children and they are out of the schools. So the demand for the education is very high for these girls. However, most of them, they are suffering from many challenges to interact with the different education opportunities available in countries. So this is in general what is happening in Jordan. Like as we can see, women and girls, they are suffering from lots of barriers, lots of deprivations from basic needs, education, livelihood, and shelter problems. When we are talking about women outside of the refugees camps in the urban cities, they have lots of problems related to their level of economic participation and ensuring their livelihood. Female-headed households, they are increasing 10% annually. The Syrian refugees crisis exists in the last 6 years with lots of problems started within, but year after year, we can see the frustration level, the level of problems is increasing, especially for family-headed households to be women, as a woman. This is what we are witnessing, like lots of problems are accumulated over the years, lots of barriers are increasing, single women are increasing in terms of numbers and their responsibilities are increasing. Due to many factors, of course, many men are leaving the country, leaving the women behind, whether they are resorting to resettlement in the hosting countries like the Western countries or other hosting countries. In the same time, women are left behind with their children to handle their problems. Other factors as well, leaving single women behind, like men, they are decided to go back to Syria to protect whatever assets they used to have, as well leaving these families behind to survive in Jordan without any support. Other issues involving this phenomena is the early marriage situation. As the reports mentioned, out of the 3 marriages occurring daily, one of them is early marriage. In Zaatari camp, we have a rate of 30 marriages per day. 20% of them, 20 cases of them are considered early marriage. 10 cases of these 20 early marriage cases are under the age of 15, and the rest from the age of 15 up to 18. As we always say, early marriage means early divorce. Therefore, we have so many single mothers, young single mothers are living without their husbands and families. So the early marriage is another phenomenon that we have to deal with. Those girls are left behind with other level of problem, which is the lack of documentations for all these interactions, marriages and divorces, or documenting their own rights. In the same time, if they have children, they have problems in documenting those children or the birth of their children. So the issue of lack of documentation involved in the Syria crisis, in the Syria situation in Jordan and in the rest of the region is one of our main, let's say, challenges that we have to deal with. Originally, many of the Syrian refugees, especially women, they came to Jordan without documents. And they continue to interact with each other in Jordan without documenting any of these interactions, such as marriages, divorces, or trade, selling assets, or any other level of interactions. The level of a problem is not that easy to describe, to tell you the truth. We have the issue of, for example, the polygamy. Many men, they are resorted to marry extra woman on top of the original wife without documenting it. So we have also newcomers to the family in terms of children, and we have to segregate these children, belong to which mother, belong to which family. All of these issues of lack of documentation, we have to tackle it. This is the issue of Jordan trying to control the huge number of refugees exist in Jordan by involving the legal sector in addressing all of these, let's say, problems and offering the right solutions. However, as I said, it's not easy. The level of, let's say, rule of law understanding for those refugees is bare minimum. Refugees, they lost their trust in the state as a state. Their states failed them. So therefore, it's not easy to let them to resort to the legal system. They don't have that huge, let's say, trust and respect for different legal entities in the hosting countries or back in their home. For instance, it's not easy for them to be convinced to resort to the authorities while they don't have the required documentations. They are worried of deportation. They are worried from being arrested or questions for handling or conducting all these illegal interactions in country. Therefore, it was our duty as lawyers and as a legal aid providers to convince them of the importance of law, any law. Just try to control your interactions, try to understand the rules and regulations involving you, where are you living. In the urban cities, it was a little bit easier because there are the different institutions, different governance structures they can interact with. But in the camp, they saw the camp, it's a Syrian area. It's an area belong to the Syrian land. It's not for the Jordanian authorities. And of course, this produced two different levels of problems. The Jordanian authorities, they were so alarmed by this understanding that the Jordanian laws are not applicable in the Zaatari camp or in the Azraq camp. At the same time, the refugees themselves, they start to establish their own, let's say, laws and regulations dependent on their culture and family structures they have. So we witness as well the flourishing of so many tribal ruling in the Zaatari camp or family ruling in the Zaatari camp, which hindered our abilities to control. Out of sudden, many stakeholders, they start to interfere and they start to push, no, we have to establish a strong structure, a strong rules that would govern different interactions. We ended up that we have so many rules. We have the UN system rules, we have the Jordanian government rules, we have the society rules. So you had to mingle. Even as aid workers or as services providers, we were asking, like, which rule we have to follow. So what about the refugees themselves who automatically refuse to interact with any of these, let's say, entities or to be abiding by these legalities? Therefore, the Jordanian government listened to us and listened to different practitioners and different UN agencies, and we said we have to find a way to attract their attentions. Therefore, we established a court, and Jordanian government authorized a judge to come and work in the Zaatari camp. By this, we are considered the second country who has a court inside the camp. And unfortunately, the other camps, the Palestinian camps who exist in the country since the 60s, they don't have this service. But however, under the high demand of the problem from the Syrian context, we were obliged to open this court. After opening the court, the Jordanian government realized that there will be a need for lawyers to handle also the administrative work. And we ended up now, we have around 6 different entities from family personal department. We have the family protection department, and we have the civil courts, and we have different entities working together. Still, the community were not that much abiding by establishing this structure, and they thought that it would create for them more problems if they decided to go back to Syria or if they would like to ask for resettlement. Registering themselves and registering their children will restrict their ability to move, basically. Therefore, we said, okay, it's not the right time, and that was 2 years ago. Only after 3 years of the establishment, we said it's not the right time to ask for a legal system to exist, so we have to go in a more community-based, and we start to raise awareness about the importance of law. When we established the court, we thought the community is ready. The community, as soon as we have the service, they can resort to these services. However, as I said, we realized they are not ready. They don't want it even. Therefore, we engaged with them with different projects, trying to mobilize them, trying to raise their awareness about the importance of not to break any law or any regulations, try to let them realize this is part of the Jordanian land. The Jordanian laws are applicable. It's totally different than what you have in Syria. There are huge differences between the Syrian laws and regulations and what is available in Jordan, so you have to educate yourself, and we are here to support you. After 2 years, a little by little, we start to receive some cases. 74% of these cases were men cases, or cases raised or filed or approached to our office by men only. So women were a little bit more hesitant than men to approach these services. Therefore, we initiated other projects like Women Access to Justice or He for She, and we start to mobilize women to approach these kind of services for their own protection and for their family protections as well. And we start to let them understand the bad consequences of early marriage or not registering their marriages or resorting to polygamy or accepting to being married to strangers, basically from outside of the camps, or being easy, let's say, target by human traffickers, unfortunately, in Jordan. So all of these efforts came together in a very minimum timing. We had to respond really quickly, really fast. And I have to say, now 54% of the cases that we are receiving are filed or raised by women, which we consider it's a huge change and difference from what we started and where we are now. The other problems we are facing with women ability to access the legal system is their lack of resources available to them in the Zaatari camp. Most of the men, they are easily engaged in the workforce exists in the camp. We have around 3,000 shops established by the Syrian refugees themselves in the Zaatari camp. However, women, they were not engaged, so they don't have the financial mechanisms to make informed decisions about raising divorce cases or registering their family. So they had to revert to the men and their families to take these decisions. Therefore, we initiated other programs to support these women economically as well, us and different stakeholders. What we were challenged is the high fees requested by the Jordanian government for the legal interactions. For example, if you want to register unregistered marriage, it will cost you $1,500. And this was a huge challenge for everyone, even the UN systems. Therefore, we encouraged the Jordanian government to give us amnesty. The amnesty was given only for 2 months in 2014. And then it was replicated in 2015 because of the huge numbers we witnessed. We didn't know that, in fact. We thought that we are having like hundreds of cases, but in Zaatari camp itself, we found that in one of the days we received 500 cases of unregistered marriages. To manage this huge load of cases, it was requesting more lawyers, more judges. Therefore, in the first 2 months amnesty, we were able to register only 2,000 cases. In the next amnesty also, for another 2 months, we were able to register only another 2,000 cases. And now we are trying with the government, who said, no, if you can afford to build a camp, you can afford to register all these marriages and interactions, and the Jordanian government, they don't have to do it for free, so the UN system can pay for it. So now we are trying with lots of donors to find the financial resources to register all these marriages. In the same time, we have the issue of registering the births or the children of these children. We have 20,000 unregistered children existing in Jordan. And this is why you see reports maybe in the media like 10,000 children were disappeared when they reached the Western shores, Italy or other countries, because these people, they are resorting to your countries without the required documentations. Therefore, it's a crucial issue for us to find a system to enable them to resort to the law and to enable them to document their interactions and try to benefit from the services available to them. As lawyers, I think it's not enough what we are doing. The rule of law issue in the Middle Eastern country, it's an hindered phenomena when it comes to other priorities like security issues or the financial problems or the conflict or the political solutions that it's required. So we need to always to re-engage different international, let's say, institutions to push the governments to prioritize this issue. From here, we can see that for sure women's rights, women's issues are hindered as a consequence for what is happening in total. The legal challenges, the ongoing conflicts, all of these issues are taking over the prioritizing of women's issues and women's rights. Therefore, we are trying always to support women, not to surrender and not to forget that they are always a priority. We have always to empower them, but as well as they have to empower themselves, not to have the power over the men, but have the power over themselves and over their decisions related to their families. Especially, as I said, there are more women now leading families and are responsible for other members in their families. In the same time, I have to say that I think neglecting the women's agenda in the Middle Eastern countries led to a more, let's say, dangerous phenomena, which is women are not really always victims. Women are sometimes themselves, they are judging the situation in a negative way, resorting to be more conservative themselves, rejecting any gesture of a change or any opportunity for a change. So they are less asking for divorce than men, or they are against the idea for women to be liberal. One of the surveys showed that 50% of the surveyed sample, they said women are more conservative than men, and they are rejecting any opportunity for a change than men. Men, they were more generous in granting them their rights compared to the women themselves. In the same time, the issue of reputation in the Middle East, 80% of the surveyed sample, they said the most important issue for women in the Middle East, and especially women as refugees, is their reputation. They feel they are over-stigmatized, being a woman and being a single woman, being a refugee, all of these impacting their, let's say, enjoyment of dignity and existing normally in the societies. Therefore, they are over-protecting the issue of reputation. I don't say this issue of protecting the reputation, it's coming from nowhere. We have the problem of honor killing. We have the problem of, let's say, isolating certain criteria of women who decided to behave or to perform their, let's say, life choices against the traditions and the cultures. So they are so cautious about these issues. And for sure, as women, as being refugees as well, they want to be accepted and protected. The issue of reputation, it's a crucial issue. We don't want to challenge it, but we want to make it a safer choice for those women and to let them to resort to other opportunities available to them to fulfill their potential. I have to say as well, like women in terms of their ability to, women as refugees, their ability to politically engage or be part of the post-conflict era, there is a huge opportunity in that sense. Women are qualified. There are so many lawyers, so many nurses, doctors, engineers, teachers from the women as being in the refugees community. So we have to attract those skillful women and try to give them the role and the opportunity they deserve. Unfortunately, in general, women in the Middle East, they are in the lowest rank of participation in terms of economic participation or political participation. So it's a big effort for us to empower refugees to be active and to be able to fulfill their role within the hosting countries. Therefore, I would like to thank different governments and different agencies. One of them is the Barcelona City Council for their generous support to such efforts. Many of our projects are supported and sponsored by the Spanish government and the Barcelona City Council. They are so cautious about what is happening, and they try to address the root causes of these problems. And when they asked me to come and speak about this issue, I said it's not that attractive topic, legal issues and women empowerment and all of these things. But of course, I would not say no, because I witness this genuine attention from the Spanish government and the Barcelona City Council, it's in terms of providing the support, in terms of this exchange in learning opportunities. And I hope our governments would realize the importance of learning from other countries and enable our youth to be exposed to such different cultures, different opportunities existing around the world, without talking about forced migration or migrations, and to push the youth themselves to find these opportunities. And I would like here to ask one of my colleagues who was a best ambassador or the best ambassador from Catalan to come and work for the Syrian women in Jordan, Laura Casanova, who is devoted 3 years of her life to come to Jordan to support women. And you have the freedom to speak in Catalan as you wish. And thank you so much. Thank you.